Hey, romance fans! You're watching Romance Rewind, a talk show on the Reader Seeks Romance channel that chats with romance authors about the romance movies from the 80s, 90s, and aughts that inspired their careers and novels. I am Liz Donatelli, and my co-host is Tiffany Current. Our guest is USA Today bestseller EVA LEIGH, author of historical romance, The Good Girl's Guide to Rakes, Book 1 in the Last Chance Scoundrels series. Today, we are discussing Ava's movie inspiration, the classic 1988 fantasy adventure romance, Willow. Hi, Ava. Welcome to Romance Rewind.
Hi, Liz. Hi, Tiffany. Thank you so much for having me.
We're super excited. We're super excited about the discussion today.
We are. Thank you so much for joining us. And you picked the movie Willow. And why? Why is that? How has Willow inspired your romance writing?
Well, I've always been interested in writing and viewing and sort of consuming strong female protagonists. That's always been the thing that's been most appealing to me in narratives across the board, starting, of course, with like Star Wars. And, I watched Battlestar Galactica, and I watched the old anime film Battle of the Planets, The Head Princess. I don't know if anybody remembers that show. And so I was always really interested in these very strong female protagonists, not characters who needed to be rescued. So one of my inspirations was watching the Indiana Jones film, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which phenomenally racist. But on top of that, the character of Willie was so aggravating to me because she did nothing but whine and scream and cry and need to be rescued and act like a fool. And yes. I was like, all the time, and that just bothered me so much that I really sought out female protagonists who did not have to be rescued, who weren't liabilities. And so when I saw Willow and I saw the character of Sorsha and her relationship with Madmartigan, Sorsha played by Joanne Whaley, and Madmartigan played by, of course, the inimitable Val Kilmer in the best wig ever.
Yes.
And I mean that legitimately.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, this is my jam. And after rewatching it and seeing the love story between Willow, played by Warwick Davis, and his wife Kaya, and I can't remember the actress's name who played his wife, which was the sweetest love story. I was like, wow, you know what? I really got all of my id needs were met from that film, including the adventure narrative, which has always been one of my most favorite kind of narratives. So when I thought about it, I was like, you know what? I really, in terms of romance, that's always been sort of like the way I like to see it, is two strong characters supporting each other, which is ultimately what winds up happening in Willow. So I'm from Los Angeles, and I saw the movie. It came out in 1988. So I was either 14 or 15 years old at the time that it came out. And I saw the movie in a movie theater in Westwood Village, which is right by the UCLA campus. Yes. And that's where you would go in LA when you were growing up and would go see a movie. So I went with a friend of mine. And the funny thing about the movie, the first time I saw it, I was, and still am, extremely squeamish. So there's a scene when there's the siege of the castle Tir Asleen, when Willow casts a spell on a troll and the troll's skin gets torn off. Yes. I couldn't handle it. I had to leave the theater and sit in the lobby for a while because I was so freaked out. So my first impression of that movie was like a little dodgy, because I was just like, I was so upset by that. And the movie got a PG, which I thought was really interesting considering some of the violence in the film. But so I am a Gen X person, and I grew up on cable television. So once Willow made it to cable TV, I watched it over and over again. But that first impression, it was too much for sensitive Ava at the time.
That had a dramatic impression on your life. I like how let's be honest, those monkeys, were they called trolls? I think they were called trolls.
They were trolls, right? Yeah.
They were terrifying. Even as an adult woman watching it, I was like, that's really creepy because they're crawling under the bridge.
Right. And they're on the walls, and they're horrible.
I agree. Although I could tell they were humans wearing a
In
suit,
costumes. Well, it's
but
a
the way
movie.
they scurried, that I was like, oh, I don't
The way
remember
they
them
scurried.
scurrying like that. That's pretty.
It was
scary.
intense.
It was intense. Tiffany, would you like to
That's
share?
so funny.
And I'd like to know how old you were when you saw it, Tiffany, because there is an age difference between the two of us.
So I was a kid when I saw this. I can't remember the exact age. I do remember seeing it at home on TV. And as a young kid, I was just like, I just thought it was cool. That's all that I can really remember about the first time. It's just, I mean, there's witches and there's like these brownies and there's people fighting. And so as a kid, I thought it was just really exciting, a lot of adventure and fun and excitement. But that's really pretty much all that I remember about it. But as an adult watching it, it was like a totally different experience for me. Like I was watching it thinking, like when George Lucas thought this up, he had to be totally high. Like he had to be high out of his mind because he's just like, I want to do a movie about a little person who wants to be a magician, but first he has to rescue like a baby from like being killed by wild dogs. And let's just throw in a witch that turns into a goat. It's like totally like a crazy like plot line if you think about it as an adult. But
yeah,
as a kid, it was enjoyable. As an adult, I was like, this is kind of nuts. It's kind of nuts.
Yeah, I hadn't remembered that George Lucas had anything to do with this movie. So when I said, I always remember, oh yeah, Ron Howard directed. And I was like, oh wait, George Lucas. I was like, oh, well, this makes sense because there are Star Wars inspirations.
Yes.
Totally.
And
totally.
apparently I read that even, the Nelwyns, which is the little people in the story,
Yeah.
Warwick Davis and his village, like that was inspired by the Ewoks, the Ewok village. And
Oh,
all
I could
that.
totally
Wow.
see
Yeah,
that.
so
I could
there's
totally
a lot of
see that.
right. Yeah, definitely. So
And it was like
yeah.
being an Ewok that led Warwick Davis to be cast as Willow.
Oh, that makes sense.
Oh,
is that
oh my
true?
God.
That's how
I
he
love
got
that
started.
canon.
Warwick Davis got
That's
started
right.
playing an Ewok, and
He's an
then he subbed in for Kenny Baker at one point because Kenny Baker was
Yeah.
sick, and George Lucas was so impressed he basically wrote a movie around him.
That's amazing. That's really cool.
I love Warwick Davis. He's also shines in the movie Leprechaun and that franchise.
No, that terrified
he's
me. We
great.
can't get into that. That movie scarred me for life.
So
Scarred
I
me.
first saw the film. I actually called my brother, who's 2 years younger than me, to ask him, did we see that in the movie with mommy and daddy? I don't remember. So he said we did. So this came out in May of 1988. So I was 11, almost 12, because my birthday's in August. I remember the scene where Madmartigan is dressed as a woman to hide from the angry woman's husband. And that to me was the most memorable thing. I remember that. And I was like, oh, this is funny. But I remember as a child thinking, well, is this supposed to be for adults or for kids? Because there was some really, like Queen Bavmorda, the evil witch, she is
Terrifying.
Scary. She is really, really scary. And then there is some really frightening, like, there's the guy, General Kale, that wears this skeleton.
The skull
helmet.
mask. Yes, I remember being terrified of him.
Yes. I was like, oh, he's like Skeletor from He-Man. So I remember thinking, gee, this feels like there's funny stuff, but then it's really scary.
Yes.
But ultimately, I enjoyed it. And when it came out on VHS, we bought it on VHS. It became our comfort watch. And now I own the DVD, the special like edition where it's all like, I don't know, the videos fixed up and all that.
I owned the soundtrack and I listened to the soundtrack relentlessly because I was writing at that time. I had started writing as a kid, but I was really concentrating on writing at that time. So, and I also wanted to be at the time, I wanted to be a book illustrator. So I would listen to James Horner's score just all the time because it was so inspiring and magical and atmospheric. And actually I rewatched it about 7 or 8 months ago for the first time in years. As I heard the first opening notes, I started to cry because I cry super easy right now, but I cried because it was so nostalgic for me and so moving and reminding me of that early time in my life. I was just like, it was so transportive to me. And I'll even now, if I'm like walking a long distance, I'll hear that sort of Willow theme, like he's like traversing the land. And I was like, that just totally goes through my head. It's like imprinted on me in a big way.
Willow Ufgood. I didn't even remember the man had a last name.
I thought he was just called Willow. I thought he was just a one-name person like Madonna. And I was like, you have a last name?
That's what I did. So
yes, Burgle Cut comes plowing into his fields, and he's like, Willow Lovegood. And so that
Burble Cut is
Burgle,
he is a thing of nightmares because there's something so scary about, he's so ominous. So Willow, he's a farmer, an aspiring sorcerer. He is a Nelwyn, which in this world is a little person, and he finds the cutest freaking little red-haired daikini baby.
Yes.
I was in love with this kid. I was like, I want one of those babies. I won't mention her name yet because in this
did they sell her as merchandise? Because as a kid we could have like Cabbage Patch Kids. They should have sold her. I know that sounds terrible, selling babies. But I would have bought that baby with that
like a Cabbage Patch Kid tie-in with the baby,
with the little red hair, the squiggle.
Yes. Oh my God, that hair a wig? That hair looked real, but then
could you imagine trying to put a wig on an infant though?
I know. So this baby that Willow finds floating in the river, kind of like Moses, the story of Moses floating on one of those straw little like things. And this baby has a mysterious arm tattoo. And he's daikini, just for those who don't know, they're considered tall folk, which I would think is kind of like the average height of people these days. I looked it up and it was 5 foot to 7 foot was a daikini height.
So for you, that's a fun fact.
Well, Leg was pretty tall, so
yes. Oh my God. Oh, and I watched this with closed captioning, just so you know. So it also opened up. Oh, these are the names, and these are how you spell the names of these people. So that was fun. I want to say this about the Nelwyn village. I'm not going to spend too much time here, but this is where I wanted to live. I still want to live there. Okay. And any time I read any romance set in medieval times or even anything before 1800, I envision the Nelwyn village in Willow. That to me is my point of reference. That's what it looks like.
So when I saw that, I immediately thought this has to be New Zealand. And I think it is. I think it is New Zealand because I was like, this is too beautiful to not meet. It felt very much like, a typical Lord of the Rings type set. But I was like, this is a beautiful location, wherever it is. Yes.
They filmed in Wales and New Zealand, and it's so gorgeous. The minute, I'm not mentioning her name yet.
Don't say her name.
I'm not, okay. The minute the baby enters the movie, this kid is acting her off.
She gave so much good face.
Oh my God.
I don't know who taught her face acting, but I would like a lesson because it was everything was this, and like an eyebrow. There were eyebrow raises. There were eyebrow
raises. I can do one eyebrow. She could probably, she could act eyebrows around me.
I know she deserved an Oscar for those eyebrows. I was like, man, you're doing it, girl.
Her eyebrow acting was on point.
Yes.
She hit every cue. It's like anytime anybody said anything, then she reacted appropriately. So I want to know, like, was someone off camera, like, trying to elicit these things? Or was this baby just an old soul and knew what was going on? I don't know.
The magic of movies.
I don't know if we'll ever know.
I think that's editing. Let's be honest. Honest. They probably shot the baby all in one day and said, like, okay, she's taking a dump. This is a perfect, like, confused expression.
She'll look skeptical.
She'll look like, I don't know what's happening. Like, that's all that they did. That's what they did. But it looked like it fit in perfectly into the movie. So
it worked. Right.
It did. All right. So we're in this Nelwyn village. There's a festival.
And the music that they're playing in the village, which they play in the end credits too, is, I guess you would say, it's a banger. I dug that in like the biggest way. It's just like, seriously, the drums.
Oh my God, I can't believe you said the word banger, because I literally wrote, this festival is the banging party of the year in the Nelwyn village. And this is where the sorcerer, played by Billy Barty.
Yeah, the legendary Billy Barty.
Yes, legendary Billy Barty. He's a sorcerer and he's going to pick an apprentice. Long story short, Willow is not chosen to be the apprentice, but he performs the coolest magic act with the first of many pigs that appear in the movie.
Oh, that one. I thought the fire thing
there's also the fire thing.
The fire thing.
Oh, the fire in the log. Well, I'm a fan of pigs, so I just zeroed in on the pigs. Yeah. But yeah, that was cool. He stuck like his flaming something through his arm. It's like, okay, he's got some skills.
But the pig trick is foreshadowing.
It is foreshadowing.
Yes,
which
that
is
was a
why I
good
wanted to
setup. It was
mention
a good setup.
it
Yeah.
was a good setup. And I had forgotten by the end that it happened. I was like, that's pretty brilliant. That was pretty brilliant. So, okay. So everyone's having
I
a
like hearing you talk about films just because it sounds like you've never like seen them before. Like, how did they figure that out to tie that into the end?
I rewatched this movie with the same childish wonder that I
Okay.
watched it when I was 11, turning
I
12.
apologize. Good for you. Good for
But
you.
that also means that there is a part of me that has not grown up and is still easily impressed.
You're still a kid. You're
I'm
still
still
a kid.
This is what keeps
I'm
me
proud
going
of
through
you.
life.
That's good. That's why you look so young
Okay.
for your age, because you still have that childish
Why, thank
mentality
you.
in you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I was like the most cynical, world-weary child. So I think that you know, I would rather be in your shoes, Liz, than just be like this again.
Yeah. You saw this earlier in the film, Willow. When are you going to change it up?
Right, exactly.
This is an original.
Here comes a pivotal scene. The wild boar dogs
Yes,
with rat
terrifying.
tails crash.
Terrifying.
Okay, like huge props to the dogs that the
Yes.
stunt dogs they got, because they were doing their job while wearing prosthetics, and that's
Yes.
pretty amazing because people can't do that, and these dogs did it.
They
So-
ran, it didn't
oh,
fall
wow.
off, and they pretended like they were looking for the baby. They were looking for
Right.
her. They did not find her, but I bought it. I was like, this is really scary.
I literally started to cry when his daughter started crying. I was like, no, save the baby. She's
I
so
know.
tiny.
Oh, she was legit crying in real life, that kid.
Yeah.
She was.
Because
Oh,
they
she
didn't tell
was?
her it was fake. They're probably
They
like,
didn't.
that's a real wild animal.
Oh,
You're
She
about
broke
to
my
die.
heart. She broke my
Oh
heart.
my
I said-
God. That's
No, I'm sure they
horrible.
told. I'm sure they
Ron
told her,
Howard,
but
you should be ashamed of yourself.
I
but
know,
that's
that
how
was-
he gets such good reactions out of people, because he's like, this is a real situation.
That's
God.
wrong.
I just read about Terry Gilliam terrorizing Sarah Polly on the set of Baron Munchausen. It's just like, oh my God,
Well, I think
somebody
he has some
look
issues.
after these children.
Wait, was the movie Time Bandits also a Terry Gilliam?
Yes,
Okay, that movie traumatized me.
that is a traumatizing movie. But
Oh,
we'll,
yeah.
so we can
Oh,
put
yeah.
a pin in that.
I think we need to do a spin-off of traumatizing.
That's another
movies.
one. Yeah.
Totally. Movies that traumatized us.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got these rat-tailed boars that are really dogs crashing the party. They were sent by evil sorceress Queen Bavmorda, played by
Yes.
Jean Marsh. And I think Jean Marsh should have gotten an Oscar because, man, she was the evilest.
She's scary.
Yeah, really. So she sends the beast to find the baby so that she can banish the baby's soul to oblivion.
Yes.
This is, to me, the biggest curiosity and a real problem for me. Well, anyway, she wants to do this because it was foretold to her that the baby will eventually destroy the queen.
Yeah. Very much like, you
Okay.
know, Snow White type situation.
Yeah, but she's
Right,
a baby. The baby isn't a threat to you now. Try to
Not
get rid of-
yet.
Not yet.
Well, then wait. What's the hurry? Throughout the
That's
whole
how all these
movie.
fairy tales start. They all start the same way. There's going to be a baby that's born that's going to change the path of society. They're like, let's kill this baby. That's how it always works out.
But in the pursuit of destroying the baby, I mean, you know, ultimately you make the prophecy come true, but we can talk about
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Right. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. But I mean, still, I feel like all throughout, okay, this is the thing, is that there was a deadline I wasn't aware of because Queen Bavmorda just kept yelling at everyone, we're running out of time.
Yes.
Find the baby. We need to do the ritual to get rid of her soul. We're running out of time. And I'm like, what's the timeline on this? She's a baby.
They didn't tell us, but I just assumed by the end of the movie, which we'll get to, is that it maybe had to do something with the alignment of the sky and probably the earth or something, because, you know, lightning came down. So I just assumed some special event was going to happen and that she had to kill the baby by that point.
Okay, well then right. That's very possible. Well, then someone should have mentioned that.
Also, you can, you know, if somebody wants to destroy a baby, then you know that they're not a good person. So it's not like she's trying
Yes.
to kill like a teenager, which I'm sure many people could relate to, but it's like an infant, you know, that's obviously like, how horrible are you that you want to
Well,
kill
that's
a
true.
helpless baby?
It helped to solidify her as the evilest evil on the planet. So I guess,
Right.
all right.
Well, if I think her parents kind of did that for her by naming her Bavmorda.
I've always kind of dug that name.
She's
though.
so nice, everybody. I love Bev Morta. Oh my God, she got
That's the
Starbucks for
prophecy.
everybody.
She was destined to be bad.
It's all
Yeah.
in the name. That's true. It's true.
So let's see. Oh, okay. So obviously the Nelwyns are like, we got to get rid of this baby. Bav Mortar is looking for her. We don't want any trouble. So armed with magic acorns that eventually amount to very disappointed about the acorns.
That's
Yeah,
not
they did
true.
nothing.
That's not true. That's not true.
Yes, it is.
We'll get to that later.
Okay. All right. Willow brings his magic acorns that Billy Barty gives him. He and some villagers take to the road to return the Daikini baby to the first Daikini they encounter. And this was when we saw all the beautiful, New Zealand scenery.
Yes.
And it was like very Lord of the Rings, very beautiful, beautiful music. And then the movie really begins. Because
yes,
we meet Madmartigan.
Yes.
At the crossroads. He is the self-proclaimed greatest swordsman that ever lived. And that is the beginning of the sexual innuendos in this movie.
Right.
I didn't even catch that as an innuendo, not even as an adult, you think?
Well, he said, like, I know a lot of women. So
I think.
But I didn't, I didn't put the swordsmanship together with that. I just,
Swords are the most phallic
thing. Very
Hey, listen,
her mind goes.
Spent a lot of time with this movie. So Matt.
I bet you did. I bet you paused it a couple times.
Hey, you don't need to know.
He was wearing that dress, and you're like, he's taking the dress off.
First of all, I want to just talk the rest of the time about Val Kilmer in the role of Madmartigan, because this was him in his prime at the height of his sexiness.
He was so hot, and the long hair.
Oh my God. And here's the other thing. I'm going crazy now. Okay.
Yes.
So he gave off, first of all, major Ryan Reynolds vibes with a Daniel Day-Lewis Last of the Mohicans hair.
Oh my God, I totally disagree, but that's fine.
No,
if that's what you're into.
I love the combo. I love the combo. Worked for me.
That's a really weird combination.
I never would have thought Ryan Reynolds, but you do
yes. You
listen,
do you.
You're telling me that well, listen, I'm just saying.
I got a Brad Pitt like 12 Monkeys vibe. That's what I was getting. Brad Pitt, 12 Monkeys, crazy vibe.
I got a strong, because this is a George Lucas influenced film. I got strong scoundrel Han Solo vibes.
Yes.
Yes.
Which is my jam.
Yes.
Yeah.
A scale like the early iterations of Harrison Ford, that is as Han Solo and also as Indy. Those were wow. Like I was like, this is my type. And then when you put a guy like a dark haired guy on screen, that's even forget it. It's all over.
Well,
totally my type, and I love the fact that he was in a cage. It's just like he's in a cage.
Yes,
you can do whatever you want.
Crow's cage,
crow's cage for some reason it was never explained.
We never know what he did. Even
why he was in the cage.
Said, "Are you a villain? Are you a thief?" And he's like, like he wouldn't tell anybody.
You don't need it, but that's the beauty of the storytelling is you honestly don't need it. We just need to know that whatever it was, Eric thinks he deserves it, and also that he fortunately wipes his teeth off so that they're not tobacco stained or whatever it is.
Yes. That was the very first thing I noticed. I'm like, oh, he's so hot. And then he kind of smiled. I'm like, I don't remember his teeth looking like that.
Yeah.
I did not remember his teeth looking like that.
He was wiping his teeth off as he's sitting there so that we get the scary first impression. And then it morphs into the super hot Madmartigan as opposed to the scary Madmartigan.
He gets progressively cleaner as the movie goes on.
Right. Until the ultimate end where he's got this beautiful soft glow behind him.
Do you know which actor auditioned for the role of Madmartigan and didn't get it? Does anyone have an idea?
I don't know.
John Cusack.
Wow.
That would have been a totally different movie.
That would have been a very different movie.
Interesting.
Totally. I don't think it would have. I think it really would have tanked because the movie didn't
do
that well. It would have really tanked if John Cusack. Can you imagine him? Like, he's not to me sexy at all. I mean, Val Kilmer, he's got the sex appeal. He's got the bravado. He has the comedic timing. I don't know.
And he was I loved him in Real Genius. And so from that point on, I always he was and Top Secret, you know what I mean? So he had that comedic vibe, but also packaged in this hotness.
Yes. very well packaged hotness. And as we
Very
go
well
on,
packaged.
I want to talk about his various states of undress.
Right.
So let's see. Long story short, Willow's like, okay, here, you could. He's reluctant to release Madmartigan to give him the baby, but Madmartigan's like, oh, give me the baby. I'll take care of the baby. Just get me out of this cage. So eventually he wore Willow down, lets him out of the cage. Madmartigan takes the baby and goes off on his way. Okay. Then things go crazy balls. And I partially mentally check out at this point. Whenever I've ever watched the movie, I start to like lose interest until Madmartigan comes on again. This is what things are like. Okay, so we meet the brownies.
Randomly out of nowhere, these creatures appeared.
They're miniature people, one of whom is played by actor Kevin Pollak, who I one time saw in a grocery store.
That was him. Oh my god!
You saw
like this guy.
Yeah, apparently, if you're a brownie, you have to be played by a comic.
Well, you have to be,
and you have to have a French accent, which I felt was kind of like maybe an anti-French thing that they were making them, like all these, and they were doing all these French accents. I was like, I don't know why brownies are French. They live in the woods, but alas, they that's what they do. So the brownies kidnap Willow. The brownies kidnap the baby.
Yes.
As they say later, I'm going to mention it now, they kidnapped the baby while Madmartigan was making pee-pee.
Oh, is that what they said?
That's what they said. They're like, oh, and we took the baby while you were making pee-pee. And I'm like, wow, okay, sure. And there was
that's
like
actually
no
not cool. Like, that's not cool.
And there's like no reaction to them saying that. So
it's part of everyday life. They just kidnap babies when people are peeing. It's like, okay.
Well, the other thing is like, I would have kind of liked to see that scene.
That wouldn't have gotten a PG rating, Liz. Let's be honest.
First of all, this movie should have been PG-13.
Yeah, definitely. That would have been like his Willow, not just Willow, his Willow. No.
So the plot at this point to me is similar to trying to reach a customer service specialist. Because like on the phone where they just keep sending you to a different thing. I felt like so many, like the baby changed hands so many times. Oh, now you got to go to this one, but to get to this one, you got to do this one. And it started to get like very convoluted. And I think it could be because apparently there were 7 drafts to this script.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. Well, I could see that.
Yeah,
I buy that. I'm familiar with the development process, and I could absolutely see that was the case.
Yeah,
like somebody wrote in the brownies. That's draft 6. Let's just throw in these little people.
Hey,
they can be kind of fun. The comic relief. We need some more laughing.
They're like C-3PO and R2-D2.
Right. The 2 little wacky sidekicks. I mean, I think the brownies. I mean, they served a purpose, but they didn't. So there's a fairy. I don't know. I guess she's the leader of the brownies. This fairy named Cherlindrea, which I think is like 3 different women's names crammed into one, tells Willow, the baby, her name is Elora Dannon. And so, okay, we finally get the baby's name. And she says, listen, Bavmorda wants to kill her, take her soul, get rid of her, You have to go to the sorceress Raziel so that Raziel can give the baby to a king and queen to raise.
It's very complicated. And she also said, but you need someone to protect you at the same time. Like she was right. She's like, you need to do this, that, but I want to also have you go get somebody else. And I'm thinking, well, who could that be? Who is he going to go back? What's going to happen?
Maybe the guy with top billing.
Yeah, maybe the lead in the movie is who he's going to go get. That was a very like convoluted thing.
It got
like, do this, and then get this guy. Okay.
It got complicated. It was a little info dumpy that she's just telling him all these things. And he's like, oh, he goes, who told you the baby's name?
It's kind of weird because she's a fairy. And I'd be like, can't you just go yourself? Like, why do I?
It's kind of like when Frodo offers Galadriel the ring. He's like, why don't you take care of this? And she's like, she comes up with some kind of weak excuse as to why she can't do it. But it's like, why not have an elfin queen handle it instead of, Frodo's a great guy and all, but like, he's a hobbit.
Somebody with more power. Yeah, somebody
exactly.
with power.
Exactly. Yeah. Go do it yourself, Cherlindrea.
And what's interesting is from this moment on, Willow keeps referring to Elora Danan as a princess. And I'm like, dude, she never said she's a princess. She said she's the baby destined to destroy Bavmorda. And we're going to give her to a king and queen to raise. So I guess she'll be raised as a princess, but
That's
she's
a princess.
she's not a princess.
That's a princess. I mean, you're taking this. This is kind of ridiculous.
I'm a stickler.
It's a princess. That's very much a stickler. I mean, it's a princess. She's gonna.
What
be
do you think, Ava? Is she really a princess?
Well, that calls into question her parents, because we meet her mother in this, like, who's been, like, gathered up with all the other pregnant women in this, like, dungeon to have the baby. We don't know who Elora Danan's father is.
Yes.
I don't know who her mother is, except that she's somebody who's been dubbed. And then on top of that, so it's like her bloodline, which is like what
all.
Yeah, her bloodline, which is theoretically what is the thing that kind of influences whether or not you're royalty or you're the aristocracy, which is like, but like we don't know who that is. She might be adopted by the king and queen of Tirisleen, but we don't know that. So he's kind of like, he's made some assumptions. Willow has made some assumptions, and nobody's around to be like, well, actually. And so it's just like, all right, let's just call her a princess. We'll call her not Leia, Elora Danan.
Oh, that's true. That's
interesting, though.
I love that name.
I like it. It's a pretty name, though. It's a beautiful name, Elora.
It's a lovely name. Yeah. I wondered, I don't know if it caught on the way that Madison did after Splash, but
yeah, love Splash.
Splash is another one I hope to cover on the show. Willow hits the road now with the brownies.
Yes.
And memorable scene, in my opinion, the movie, they run into Madmartigan again.
What I love about this scene is that he just happens to stumble into a bar looking for milk. He's like, I need some milk. Let me just stumble into this bar. And Madmartigan just happens to be in the same bar in the midst of trying to sleep with a woman who's married. It just happens to be there. That's a really big coincidence. That's a really big coincidence.
Yeah. Although, I mean, you have to suspend disbelief because we are dealing with a lot of magic anyway. So I guess
so maybe it's like some kind of cosmic prophecy that all of their paths are going to cross.
True.
Oh, I like that. That's good.
That's
very positive.
That's why Ava's work is awesome, because she's a good storyteller and she makes things make sense.
Yes.
I don't know about not often. I wish they did.
So so they're in this tavern, and Madmartigan is dressed as a woman to try to deceive the woman he's sleeping with's husband, named what is it again? Lug. And it's spelled with like two
great.
L's.
I love that.
LL, Lug.
Why? Because he's Welsh?
Maybe. He's fearsome. He's a big dude.
He is.
And
he's very aggressive, because he comes in and at first he's concerned, and then he's just like, oh, who's this beautiful woman? And he just starts aggressively groping. I was watching it.
His wife's in the room.
Yeah. He's right there. He's like, oh, let me just touch up parts of your body. I'm thinking, like, as an adult woman, I was like, I don't remember this as a kid. As an adult woman, I'm like, this isn't okay. This is no okay.
And then he's like, want to breed? And I'm like, this is a PG movie. What's happening here?
That's why they use the word breed instead of a different word. I
didn't even catch that. And
like, no, I don't want to breed. I want to just go home safely, please, sir.
That's home. I don't remember and it was PG.
It was aggressive. It was a
different time. And funny enough, like as a kid, I was just like, oh, look how funny he's groping her.
Yes.
Like, isn't that
as a kid, it's like, this is hilarious. This is funny.
Oh yeah, we could talk for days about movies in the 80s and 90s.
How appropriate it was, yeah. But then at this moment, that's when Sorsha storms into the bar looking for the baby.
Right.
And she sees Val Kilmer, who I guess she assumes is a woman. And then at one point she pulls down, I guess, his little masky thing, and
you're no woman.
She discovers it's a he, and he looks at her and they kind of share a look because he thinks that she's beautiful. I will say in that moment, I did think of your book in that specific moment, purely because he's in drag in this moment, Val Kilmer. And in your book, Karen and Celeste kind of have that meeting in the woman's wardrobe.
Oh, right.
And
In the
so-
fitting room of the
fitting room.
modiste. Yeah.
Yes.
So I did kind of get that same kind of vibe there because, he's in drag, they're meeting in like a woman's fitting room. And I wanted to know, this is just out of curiosity, did they do that back in the day? Did men sneak into fitting rooms? But I was just curious. Like,
No,
did
good idea.
I
would do that.
it's a fantastic idea.
I don't, maybe they did. I'm just gonna say yes, or at least here they did. There's a certain amount of historical verisimilitude that I try to strive for, and then there's also artistic license. So I figured this guy's a scoundrel. I mean, why not have him, bribe the modiste so that he could hide in the fitting room? And I mean, people hooking up in fitting rooms wasn't like a 20th century invention. I'm sure people did that before.
It's actually very fair. That was
Yeah.
cool. That was the one thing I was watching. I'm like, this is
Yeah.
kind of similar vibes to your book. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Oh,
there.
thank you. Thanks for making that connection.
Actually, this would be a good point for you, part for you to give us kind of a little bit about the Good Girl's Guide before we get any further in Willow's journey.
Yeah, Willow has a long journey, so we
He
can
has a
take
long journey.
little-
You need to take
we
a
can take a
breather.
little break and
recover.
talk about the Good Girl's Guide to Rakes,
Yeah.
which is a Regency set historical. It's a best friends brother romance, good girl, bad boy, secret bargain romance. Because of a scandal, Kieran Ransom's parents say, and his family say, look, either get your shit together and get married to a reputable woman in the span of a year, or you get cut off financially. So he, in order to facilitate that happening, he goes to the most respectable woman he knows, which is his best friend's sister, to help him reform his very rakish reputation. And she initially doesn't want to help him, but then she decides she will help him. But in exchange for helping him reform his reputation and help him find a bride, she says, you have to show me the disreputable, rakish, wild side of London. And he thinks, oh, well, I can do that. How difficult can that be? And then, of course, feelings and pants feelings ensue.
Did you say pants feelings?
Pants feelings, yes. I did not
like
come up with
that.
that term, but I've
That's a good
I've heard it.
phrase.
Yeah.
I like that phrase.
I don't think I've heard that one before. Pants.
That's the first time I like it.
Pants.
That's
feelings.
nice. I will say I did find a lot of similarities between Kieran, the lead in your book, and also Val Kilmer, because they both come off when we first meet them as these like womanizer, layabouts, people. That's all on the surface, and then throughout time in the book and also in the movie, the layers kind of get like torn down, and then we kind of get to see the real man underneath. So I did see that similarity there.
Well, I mean, as I said, I'm a sucker for a scoundrel, and the whole series is called the Last Chance Scoundrel series, and Madmartigan is definitely up there in the rank of cinema scoundrels. So he for me, he was irresistible. So I feel like parts of him sort of show up all over the place in the heroes that I write.
After it's revealed that it's Val Kilmer, and so then the husband angrily attacks him, and that's how they escape the bar. And then from there, they kind of hop into a carriage, and that's when we finally get to see Madmartigan fighting for real. And that's when it's just like, oh, he is great.
You are great.
That was the moment where it's just like he's not all talk. We actually get to see him battling, and I kind of like that reveal of like, oh, he's not all talk. He really is a great warrior, and etc. And that was kind of exciting for me.
Yeah.
Oh, also, and Willow also, the horses, no one's at the reins of the horses because Madmartigan is busy fighting the stuntmen. And Willow actually has to crawl across the out of control carriage, grab the reins and stop the horses. And, I think this is where we really start to see the emergence of we already know Willow is courageous, but he's struggling with his courage, and he's struggling with his own sense of ability and power. And this is a stage where we get to see that Willow is, he's coming into his own. He's really taking ownership of himself and his ability, not just as a sorcerer, but just as like a hero.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
See, in my mind, I was like, oh, come on, hurry up. Let's get to another, because I
show me Val Kilmer with his shirt off. Where is that
we're getting there. We're almost there.
Because those wagon chases, just like car chases or any type of chase,
they
usually lose
you.
me. So, but you're right. That was a pivotal, like a turning point in Willow's character.
For him and for Val Kilmer. It was cool. Yeah.
So they do escape. Oh, yes. Then
To the lake.
Val
They go to
Kilmer
the
is
lake.
taking off the women's garb and he's like walking around with just like, I don't know, the dress hanging from him. And he's just
like a loincloth.
Yeah, right. That's what it looks like. Kind of like he gets like loinclothy eventually. He just keeps losing clothes until he's just like in a loincloth and he's got.
I like
these,
how that's like a
long boots.
countdown for you of like
Oh my
clothes being
God.
taken like 10, 9, 8,
Ding.
7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So hot. So hot.
Happy New Year, everybody. He's in a pair of underpants.
Oh man, no kidding. One thing I'd like to mention, just backtracking just a little bit about their time at the bar/tavern, is that we learn of the existence of this fairy love potion that the brownies, I guess, have packed for
Dust of broken heart.
Yeah, for some unknown reason. And it's like, so this dust exists and then comes into play later. Madmartigan and the brownies and Willow, they eventually they find this Raziel character. Okay. Yes. She is a sorceress who is a muskrat. She's been turned into a muskrat by evil Queen Bavmorda. And she's been
What I love about that moment is that they meet here for the first time. Willow goes over there and he meets this muskrat, possum, whatever. And he acts like it's totally normal. She just starts talking. He's just like, oh, you must be the witch. He doesn't ask why she's a muskrat. He just accepts it as it is and just kind of moves on. I thought that was wild. I was like, you just accept in your world.
He's a sorcerer. He's a sorcerer. So he invites all that into his life.
That was much for me. I was like, you just accept it, no questions.
It's interesting that at this point you still have not suspended enough disbelief in the story, Tiffany.
That's true.
What's it gonna take?
I know. I should have. I thought that was weird.
Well, listen, from the minute he meets Raziel's like, hey, listen, you're a sorcerer, right? Change me back into my human form. And he's like, oh, I'm kind of just a novice at this. She does nothing from that point on but berate him and call him an idiot because he can't get his together and turn her back into a human. Eventually he does. But like, I was like, give him a break, lady. Like, I thought it was a bit much.
It's tough love.
If you thought that Raziel was going to be a warm maternal figure, that's not the kind of mom you're getting.
Yes, that is true. She was very aggressive. And she was very much like, there was no like, you're doing a great job. You know, I have faith in you. It's just like, get it done. I need to be this young witch again. Let's get it done.
Right.
And she was just, she was kind of hostile.
She kept yelling at him, concentrate. I'm like, oh my God.
That's the last way to get somebody to concentrate is yell at them.
Yes.
So I was like, I don't dig her whole thing, but I never realized that as a kid that she was so harsh until now. I'm like, oh my God, like that's very off-putting, Raziel. So
you had too many bad bosses. You're like, that's like my bad boss. She's my bad boss.
You know what? I think you know
you
me,
had an experienced life. Now as an adult, you're like, you know what? She reminds me of my last boss.
Stop, Raziel. Yeah.
Stop picking on me. I'm doing my best. Right. My papers will be done soon enough. Leave me alone.
It's not good enough.
You're
just not good enough.
So Sorsha and the evil horde take Elora. They take the baby, Elora. They imprison Willow, Madmartigan, and Raziel, who at this point is still a muskrat.
That's what I don't understand. Like, how did they see this muskrat? And they're like, you know what? Let's take the muskrat and put her in a cage. Like, it's not that like Bavmorda was like, hey, and be on the lookout for a talking muskrat.
I know. There must have been so much on the cutting room floor of this movie because there were logic jumps.
She probably spoke. She probably spoke, and maybe they took her.
She went, oh no!
You don't encounter a talking muskrat every day. I think Bavmorda's going to want to see this.
All right, remember that love potion? So somehow the brownies who escaped getting captured, they let out their friends. They're like, here, we'll pick the lock, and accidentally smack Madmartigan in the face with the love potion, okay?
Yes.
Now, here's the thing. This is where things get confusing to me, is that when...
This is where they get confusing?
Yes. Kevin Pollak, a.k.a. a brownie, he accidentally got smacked with the love potion earlier.
Yes.
And the first thing he looked at was a cat and fell in love with the cat. Okay. Yes. The first thing that Madmartigan saw after getting smacked in the face
was Willow. That is true. You got to let things go. I accepted it because maybe the rule is you fall in love with a woman or a female of
Well,
some
then
sort.
that's problematic because
Right?
you
It's
could tell-
heteronormative.
That's right.
I mean, you guys, you were just getting on me for a talking possum. I think you have to let this part go.
Okay, well, I'll let it go, but I'm not letting go the part when he does enter into the tent. Actually,
Yes.
that's a great scene.
That's a
When
great
Madmartigan
scene.
enters the tent and he's under the influence and he's just so poetic. That actually reminded me of Kieran from the Good Girls Guide. Is all
Yes.
the like the beautiful words and the
Mhm.
poetry. So he does that, and I was
I
like,
love
oh,
that
this
because
is
he
sexy.
stumbled in there and
Oh,
he's trying to get the baby and he looks up and he sees her and,
And
he,
he's like
he
half
stops
clothed.
and
Yeah.
he's half closed and he's just like, you're the sun and the stars.
You are my sun, my moon, my starlit sky. Without you, dwell in darkness. I love you.
And she gets up and she's like, what do you, and she had her sword and she was
Yeah.
threatening him and he's just like, I don't care, I love you, strike me through. I thought that was like the best scene for me.
It was, yeah.
I
in the
love
movie.
that she sleeps so beautifully, because if Madmartigan had snuck into my room when I was asleep, I don't think he would have been struck.
That is
True.
true.
Because I just, the drool and the snoring and it's not quite the same. But
Yeah,
we
you're
have
right.
a talking muskrat, so let's just assume that
She
Sorsha
was
teased out her
beautiful.
hair. Yeah,
Yeah, she was.
she looks great when she's sleeping.
She
She looked great. And in that moment, I
yeah.
guess the guards run in and that's when he pulls her in and they kiss passionately.
Yeah, they do kiss. And, you could see that she's softening towards him. I mean, they have this enemies to lovers like vibe. Well, they have the enemies vibe. And then you start seeing
She
her
kicks him in the
soften.
face.
I want to talk about that. That's my favorite exchange between them. And I felt like this exchange would be something very Ava Leigh. Okay. Well, maybe minus
interesting.
the kick to the face.
Yes.
But
I don't know.
so when she first, takes Madmartigan and the group, prisoner, I think that's when all his clothes are starting to come off. And she's like, oh, you lost your skirt. And he gets close to her and he looks her in the eye. And he's like, I've still got what counts. And then I was like, oh my God, that's so sexy. And then she's like, not for long. And then she kicks him in the face, which ruined it. She should have kicked him in the balls because that would have made more sense. But anyway, it's a PG movie.
She was also on a horse, so it would have been hard for her to get her leg down.
That's true.
And
That's
then
true.
kick him in the nuts.
But this is a magical world. So
all right.
No. But I will say when they
Anyway.
go back to that scene where he kisses her for the first time, I will say as a young child, I feel like that was the first time I was like, oh, wait a second, what's happening here? I think that
I'm
was my first
experiencing
moment.
nascent pants feelings.
Yes, I was like, I feel a tingle. There was a tingle. I think as a young child, I'm like, I feel a tingle. Because I remember
your
watching
sexual awakening was during Willow.
was during Willow, Val
Right.
Kilmer kissing this woman.
Yeah.
Because as an adult, I
As
was
the
like,
tent
I remember
collapses
this.
around them.
As the
The
tent-
tent-
it was
yeah.
such a beautiful shot. It was a beautiful shot. So we get out of the tent, the kiss happens, and then they escape on a sled. What I love about this is they escape on a sled. Madmartigan falls off the sled and turns into a snowball.
Yes.
So
Turns into a
ludicrous.
human snowball. And that's for me where it went like really wacky. I was like,
Yes.
what's happening?
I even wrote down very slapstick, which I feel tonally this movie was all over the place.
Yes. Did you
Totally.
see his feet sticking out right as he's rolling down?
Yeah,
Yeah. So he rolls into town in a snowball.
literally.
They take her captive, and Val Kilmer, Madmartigan, and Sorsha are riding on a horse together. And basically, he's in disbelief that he said all this poetic things to her, and she's just like, you're not calling me your sun and your moon and et cetera. He's like, I don't remember. Did I really see that? And what I liked about that moment is she got upset. I think she felt a little upset that he forgot saying these beautiful things to her, and she struggles and she gets off the horse and he chases after her, and there's a look of longing. That's just kind of the buildup of this, I guess, relationship between the two in that moment.
And he pins her to the ground, and there's a heated look between them there. There's panting.
Yes.
Queen Bavmorda just saw her daughter as just another soldier. And Madmartigan made her feel like a woman.
Oh, look at you,
That's
Liz.
Nice. Look at that. Hey.
Oh my goodness.
hey.
And as a tie-in, that's the exact same thing. Very similar thing in the book, The Good Girls Guide, because it's the same thing where Celeste is being seen as this kind of property to having to marry
Yes.
someone. And then here comes this guy that looks at her a little differently, that wants her to have her own voice and make her own choices. So it's kind of similar in the characterizations there.
I
Yeah.
like that connection. Thank you.
Yeah. You're the best, Tiffany.
Thank you. I'll
Yes.
take that.
Can I get to the castle now? I don't
Yeah,
know.
now
I
they're- now
skipped
they're-
all that. I skipped
they're
all
now
Now
that.
it's a crazy
Tears
castle.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So now another very long story short. So everyone arrives at this was it Tyroline?
Tiraslene.
And they're like, oh, we finally made it. The king and queen could take the baby Elora. And everyone, I think, is encased in ice. Like everyone who's
Yes.
something.
Yeah.
Like they don't really address it. or
Never
try to save
explained
these
why.
people.
I was like, okay.
Because the trolls took over. Okay. So the trolls have run of this castle.
Can we comment on the fact when they first get there,
Yeah.
Willow steps in poop and he's like, trolls. And I
hate
was like,
trolls.
how did you know from the poop?
Oh,
But
I didn't
It was-
know about this.
It was Madmartigan who stepped in the poop.
Oh,
I
was it
hate to,
Madmartigan?
yeah,
No,
but
that's
so
fine.
apparently Madmartigan is familiar enough with troll poop that when he steps in it, he's like some kind. He's like the
He's the poop police. He's like
Hawkeye
right away. Yeah.
of
Yes.
Okay.
of trolls.
Smells like trolls. It's
Yeah,
like, okay.
and it's fresh, and they were just
Yeah.
here, and they just
They're-
had pork chops.
That scene was off the wall because it's like, okay, these people, how long were they encased in
I was thinking about that just now because when Madmartigan, they're like, okay, Tiraslene is obviously totally messed up. And Madmartigan goes into an armory and he sees all of this amazing stuff. And there were cobwebs everywhere. And I was like, when did this happen? But I was thinking about it. And Finn Raziel says, you have to get to Tiraslene because they're going to help you.
Mm.
Or is it right? It's Finn Raziel who sends him to
Yep.
Tiraslene.
Yep.
Finn Raziel has been a muskrat on an island for a while. So maybe Tiraslene was cursed
Oh,
after Finn
Interesting.
Raziel was turned into a muskrat. So she would have no knowledge. So maybe like 30 years have gone by
okay.
and it's been, and they have to call the pest control because it's been overrun by trolls.
Okay, I think
Interesting.
you're bridging all the gaps that I
I think
have.
I'm trying too hard is what's happening here.
No,
I'm trying
that makes
I'm
sense.
trying to make a not particularly logical narrative into something that's maybe
No, it's I feel
No,
like
that
you're the
makes sense.
copy editor. You're like reading the script, like, okay, guys, let's be real here. Like, what happened?
Right, you have to mention,
you
yeah,
jumped 30 pages.
right.
yeah, no, for sure.
What happened in that timeline?
So
But we get there and it's crazy balls. We have
Yes.
trolls, we have people that are encased in ice, we have this huge artillery of like I don't know, swords and guns and et cetera, randomly, and then suddenly
An armor.
and then
yes,
the other people
um,
come. Sorsha comes with her troops. Val Kilmer quickly closes the door. And that's when I guess Willow sees his first troll. The troll.
He knows he hates
upside
trolls,
down.
but he's never actually encountered a troll. I don't know how that works.
Right. I was wondering that too. But these
But he was
trolls are
correct
like-
though. They are terrible.
They are
ter-
awful.
They
Yeah.
are. They're not pleasant.
I think he tries to throw an acorn at the troll. In that same moment, he points the wand at the troll and kind of like, the skin pops off the troll's body,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
terrifying. And then somehow the troll falls in the water. And I assume the combination of the wand and the acorn made this,
Oh.
I don't know, this egg thing turn
Okay.
into that giant two-headed dragon that appears out of the water.
Okay, that's
That's
interesting.
what I think happened.
I actually thought that two-headed thing lived inside the troll and was released.
Oh my God.
But listen,
Interesting.
I read that apparently when he was doing this, he was trying to transform the troll into something, and it transformed into the two-headed beast.
Interesting.
Which
Mhm.
either way, it was really bad special effects. Like the Smiths were.
I mean, I think they were of that era. So,
Yes.
we got to see we will be seeing sort of developing morphing technology
Yes.
later in the film.
Yeah.
But, I have to say, I respect and really like practical special effects when they do stop motion and they do build models and stuff like that. Because I'm just kind of like, it's kind of a lost art at this point. And so I feel like this very unusually styled dragon, two-headed dragon, I was like, you know what? And I loved his tiny little eyes. He had these little teeny tiny eyes. So I kind of I like when I see that kind of stuff, it makes me a little misty, not like actually, but I just sort of like, it's part of the lost art of certain aspects of filmmaking.
Right.
And so there's a green screen. Sure, why not? Because that
Yes.
was the latest in technology at the time. So it's kind of like, I'm willing to kind of suspend my disbelief. And in a way, when I see that kind of stuff, I'm more invested in it than if it was CGI. Because sometimes I feel there's something about CGI that's so smooth and so perfect that it's like, it's not asking anything of me. And I have a harder time sort of buying into it rather than sort of like witnessing this thing that was made by, like somebody's hands versus coded in a computer.
I can agree with that, because sometimes when it's so smooth, it's like, well, this is just fake and I can tell. But this, even though it's like from the 80s, it's kind of cool and terrible, but it's just, they did their best.
Yeah.
Either way, this two-headed dragon comes, and that's when we get to see Madmartigan be this incredible warrior. And he jumps on top of the dragon, he starts battling it, and that's when Sorsha comes in and she just stops and watches him.
Well, this is when we were watching it last night, I turned to my husband and I said, competence porn. For Sorsha, she is wooed more, almost less by Madmartigan's poetry than she is by his skill as a warrior. Like that to her is the thing that sort of like makes her realize this guy is for real, and maybe he could be my equal, as opposed to somebody that I command or somebody who's a supplicant. He's like, no, this guy's as badass as I am. So maybe, and that's a turn on for her.
Yeah. Oh, it's a turn on for me too. Competence.
Well, I mean,
on
she's not alone, right? I mean, if I was her, I mean, there is a dragon running around, but maybe I would be staring at Madmartigan also.
Yeah. So she stares at him, and then in a moment of urgency, she grabs him and they kiss.
Guys who have been lit on fire by the dragon are running around screaming. And she's like, you know what? This is a good idea. Right now is the perfect time.
It's a good moment. We got to take our moments whenever we have that opportunity. And she said, I'm going to storm over to you very aggressively. Because I'm like, what is she about to do?
Yeah.
She pulls him in. He's also shocked. And then they kiss.
Yeah. They kiss. And in the biggest magic trick of them all, in that moment, she now abandons her team of soldiers. She's like, I'm good now. I'm with Madmartigan. He's my love. I'm going to fight with him, not against him. And then she has little to no dialogue for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, I noticed that also. She basically, her dialogue and her character almost sort of drops out at that point. It's like we've had the resolution of her story arc, which is she's gotten good deed essentially, and she's like, this is, and then she doesn't have very much else to say. I think a couple of times she goes like, mother, and then that's
she does say mother later.
Yes,
she does say mother later.
She does, and that even in the very end, like, well, we'll talk about, but it's like in the end, she said, it's almost like they said, you better not say anything. Like it looked like she was forbidden. There was like a very,
she found love, and now she never gets to speak again. I think that's the lesson that we learn as children. At this point, they've made out in the middle of a battlefield. She changes side. The Skull Man sees this happening. He goes up and I guess battles Willow off screen, takes the baby, rides off. Willow, I don't know, tumbles down the steps or something. He's like, they took her. They took Elora.
The baby, this baby gets passed around so many times.
I remember somebody referring to the baby in Ice Age. We were watching some of like the extras for Ice Age, and the animators and the filmmakers behind it called her a football. So in essence, that is what Elora Danan is, which is also, if you ever watch The Princess Bride, Buttercup is a football because she just gets handed from one person to another with no discernible identity of her own. But that's another story for another day. But Elora Danan is an infant, so she actually doesn't have the same kind of agency that a full-grown adult human is, but she is sort of passed around like a baton or a football.
Oh, yeah. Everyone, I was gonna say horses up, gets on their horses. Everyone mobilizes they go to Queen Bavmorda's castle. I don't know if that was a real castle. Was that like just something they?
I think it was a mat. I think
was it? Okay, because it was really, it was a cool castle. They go
and the exteriors of that were shot in Ireland, I believe.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, I'd love to go to Ireland or
it's amazing
castles. Yeah. So they all go, Sorsha, Madmartigan, Willow. At this point, I believe Finn Raziel is still a muskrat.
No, she's a goat.
Oh, that's right.
And he turns her into a goat and she says, Willow, you idiot.
Willow, you idiot. And I was like, that's wrong. You should have at least thanked him for getting you a little bit more evolved, I guess.
You're bigger now. At least you're bigger.
Wait, she was a crow or she was some kind of avian before that.
Oh,
He turns her into a bird.
Back at the snow camp, I think.
Yes,
right?
He turns into a bird. And then from a bird, she gets turned into a goat.
She turns into a goat. So the goat, Raziel, is there. Everyone's there.
Classic Raziel,
Yeah, classic, of course. And just so then the friend, the other group of soldiers who I guess Madmartigan used to be a part of, led by Eric, and his name is AIRK.
Eric.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so it's like Eric.
He calls him Eric.
Right. They all, outside the castle, they're like, we're going to come for you, Bavmorda. We're going to take the baby. We're going to take you down. And then Bavmorda's like, I'm turning you all into pigs. So Bavmorda turns everyone into pigs. And I thought that was some of the best, special, I don't know,
horrifying.
That was really good. That was really good, even for today.
Yeah. Really they all turned into pigs. I was like, this transformation is epic.
And also, it's there's that movie from, I think it was either the late 70s or early 80s, An American Werewolf in London, where Rick Baker did the prosthetics and makeup for that. And they didn't want it just to be this smooth transition into turning into a wolf. It's agonizing for the person being turned into the wolf. So it's horrifying. It's not just the fact that he is being turned into a wolf. It's like it's physically painful. And we get to and that was another traumatizing thing for me when I was a very sensitive teen, is just all these people writhing around. And you see at some point, you pan over and there's somebody who's half human and then they have pig trotters. So their torso is human. And then they have these pig trotters and they're kind of flailing around, and it's just awful. It's just horrible.
It was awful.
It's unsettling, to say the least.
It is.
And then Raziel, the goat, is like, come on, Willow, hurry up. And he changes her into a human because he does
it.
Yeah, he
finally does it.
And does she thank him? No.
She's like, I'm an old lady now. You're welcome.
Yeah.
You're alive.
I know. That was it. Longer story short, according to my notes, Bavmorda is, I skip all the way to the end. Bavmorda is tricked by Willow's pig trick. So,
well, I will say they do make it inside the castle. A fight ensues.
Yes.
Bavmorda tries to basically kill her daughter. The other witch stops her. And then Willow tries to save the baby, and Bavmorda's like, you silly boy, you're not a real magician. And that's when Willow does the magic trick.
He does try the eggcorn. He used his last eggcorn, and it turned her arm into stone.
It still worked. It worked.
She was more powerful than Billy Barty's magic.
Yes,
But the one thing we did gloss over is the epic fist fight between two old ladies. And it's like, you know what? And the older I get, the more I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's not like Raziel and that whole thing is like Glinda the Good Witch. She is not. She's cackling. She wants to beat the out of Bavmorda. She's not there to just save the day. She's there for vengeance. And she literally just punches her in the face. And I'm
It's a
just
good
like,
fight.
a few times. And I'm like,
She does.
you know what,
pounds
old
on her.
lady? I feel that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was the only fist fight I've ever seen between two sorcerers that she was, although
very
Instead of
specific.
doing, they
yeah.
usually do like this, you
Yeah.
know,
Right.
and this
Like,
one's
she
like,
was
you know
just
what,
like,
you
I'm
know,
getting
this is
down.
better. This
She's
is
like,
even
I want to
better.
do skin to skin. I want to feel
Yeah.
it.
My knuckles need to feel Bav Morta's nose break.
Yes.
And we felt it as viewers. That was like a serious a
Yeah.
serious battle.
Now,
Yeah.
what actually does in Bav Mortar, it looks like she's just hit by lightning.
Well,
and
she like
disintegrates?
she's holding Shalindria's wand. She
Right.
bumps into some kind of like Hawaiian
magic
punch
potion.
bowl that's sitting
Yes.
on the altar, and then she lifts, and it's just purely kind of by happenstance that she winds up killing herself because she
Yes.
is so freaked out by the fact that the baby is gone.
Right.
So
Yes.
Bav Morta is really the engineer of her own demise.
It
Okay.
was a pretty big thing of luck for Willow because he's like, it's a good thing she knocked into that table.
Yeah,
Otherwise-
exactly. What did you have next planned, Willow?
Yeah, I know. It's like she just bummed at the table and then she just kind of evaporated. It's like, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, well, I thought the same thing. I was like, wow, he really lucked out.
Yeah.
And then like, you know, Sorsha, who was in the room, she had been knocked out. She regains consciousness just in time to see her mother turn into incense smoke. And then Madmartigan comes into the room and she's like, mom's dead. Plant one on this. And
We beat evil. She's been your mom for like 25 years.
yeah, right. And I mean, like, I know your relationship is toxic, but isn't there maybe a little room for, you know, nuance of emotion?
A little remorse, but her mom did just try to kill her like 5 minutes before. So maybe
Right.
that's why.
Right. So she's like, you know what? I wash my hands of this.
Yeah, she she didn't care. I mean, listen,
She had a date with a spiral curl iron. And
Yeah.
That's
Well,
true.
that's my next thing is Sorsha and Madmartigan live in the castle now and have the baby Elora. Willow is given a mini horse or a donkey and a book of magic to keep studying. He returns home to his family, turns an apple into a bird. The end.
I don't even remember the apple into a bird. That's
yeah,
funny.
it poops on Burgle Cut, you know, because apparently
Yes.
it's a callback to when Elora Danan barfs on him.
Yes.
So that
Oh,
poor
that's right.
actor, man, he just
Yeah.
gets humiliated from one end of that movie to
Yeah.
the other.
Yes.
He pissed somebody off.
So
And
here's the
Howard's
thing.
like, you're gonna pay.
The one love story that to me was the most heartfelt was between Kaya and Willow. When
Yeah,
at the very
absolutely.
beginning, when she's like, we've never been apart, and then she gave him the hair, I was like, oh my God, this woman, she's a fantastic actor, first of all,
Yeah.
because this is just like, as she almost
You
brought me
believed
to-
her.
and at the end, I got chills when
Yeah.
they were reunited and they're running to each other. You know,
That love
that.
story was very sweet,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I didn't appreciate it as a teenager, and
Yes.
which I did as an adult, as somebody who's been in a long-term relationship, and just this
Yeah.
whole notion of like commitment and
Yeah.
you know, and loving somebody and missing somebody and the sacrifices you make for them. You know,
Yeah.
like like I wasn't able to really appreciate that until I got older.
Yeah. Oh, for
Yeah.
sure. For sure. That really struck me more now, yeah, than it ever had. So Madmartigan and Sorsha are just going to keep the baby. You're not going to go
Yeah.
back to the castle
gonna
and try
raise
to
the
like
baby.
resurrect the.
They did. That's where they were. They were at Tirzleen at the end. I guess
Oh,
they
they were?
probably, it's a different castle.
Oh,
They
I
not,
thought it was a different.
no, they weren't in
Okay.
Castle Grayskull anymore. They were back at Tirzleen, and everybody's been freed from their
Yeah.
spell.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, but it looked like Sorsha and Madmartigan were going to keep the baby, or were they just holding her? Maybe they were just holding her.
Well, maybe they're gonna be like godparents to the baby
Okay.
who's gonna be raised
Okay.
by the king and queen.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, we're going to get a chance to find out because Disney Plus is
I'm-
putting out the Willow.
I
know,
tweeted
it's
about this.
exciting.
I'm unreasonably excited about this, and I know I'm going to be disappointed because that's always what happens when I'm excited about something like this, but I really am
Aw.
looking forward to it. And I'm also excited because I feel like it's a much more inclusive cast.
I did read that Madmartigan is going to be a huge part of the show, and apparently Val
Really?
Kilmer will be involved.
Interesting.
They don't know to what degree. If anyone saw the Top Gun Maverick movie, he does physically appear in it, but they use AI for his voice because he no longer has a voice due to
Yes, yeah.
his battle
Yeah.
Oh,
with
is that
lung
how,
cancer.
I was wondering how they handled it. I wasn't really sure. Yeah, he has to speak with
Yeah,
you know,
like a
because-
voice
Little thing,
Yeah.
yeah.
box. So.
I saw that Sorsha was going to be involved too.
Yes,
I
so
was-
is Joanne
Oh,
Wally.
cool.
Yeah, yes,
Wow.
yes.
I read the novelization when I was back in the
Oh.
day. It was way darker than the movie. If you think the movie was
Really?
kind of bananas, this book was dark. And then apparently in the 90s and early aughts, there was a trilogy of books that were about Elora Danan as a teenager.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, but I did not read those. But I do remember reading. I was watching the credits last night, and it came up and it said, "Read the Ballantine book," and I'm like, I did. Back when I don't know if they still
That's
novelize
cool.
movies, but I do remember reading that.
Oh,
Oh,
fantastic.
wow. That sounds really cool.
Oh, that's
Mhm.
awesome. Very
I
cool.
tweeted that when the TV series is coming out, I'm like, hey, Disney Plus, if you're looking for somebody to novelize any of this,
Oh, I like that plug for yourself. That's
Oh.
you
very
know, you
smart.
got to shoot your shot. Nobody
Yeah.
responded, but you got to put it out there into the universe.
It's out there, yeah. The
I would
universe
Ask
may
for
respond.
abundance.
Yes. Oh, I would love for that opportunity to come your way. Well, thank you for joining us, Ava. It was a lot of fun chatting with you about
Thank you. It
It was
Willow,
fun.
Good Girl's Guide. In the words of Willow Offgood, when he first saw Madmartigan wield his sword, "You are great."
And then he flips his sword and falls on his ass.
That is
So
true.
I feel
Yeah,
like that's pretty
true.
emblematic.
You are great.